Okay, here's the agenda. As you probably have it. Shared it with the chat. Chat on YouTube, let me know when you can hear me. Okay, most of you probably saw we released V0.11 last night. This includes a lot of DOS hardening on the network, the P2P spec, as well as some other changes that have been introduced in the P2P stack to clean things up as people have been working on their testnets. In addition to that, there's a few things that made it into the state transition spec, including a little bit of extra support for isolating, more easily isolating chains, adding the proposer index to blocks to kind of increase the usefulness of being able to verify things, even if you don't necessarily have access to all of the state, and a couple other little things. This is to be stable multi-client target. This is something where we are not intending to introduce changes in state transition. I do expect over the next few days, as y'all implement this stuff, to have some feedback, so some clarifications and maybe some little fixes to make it in. And from there, as we are doing multi-client testing and see potential disparities in how people interpreted things or potential better ways to do things, I do expect to see a little bit of changes to make it still into the networking spec, especially certainly clarifications. So that's that. The next testing priorities are, drum roll, fork choice, and some of these networking tests that Proto has been, Proto Dimitri have written some stuff up on. Now that a lot of the burden of some of the spec stuff is also off of us, I think we can make some progress here. Questions? Thoughts? Proto, you have anything?
Yeah, so regarding testing updates, better late than never, Serenity has been updated to support 0.10. It's mostly in preparation of the new version, which doesn't change all that much regarding to the state transition. We needed this BOS and we needed to verify all these test results, as internally the spec has been changing and getting faster. So test vectors are out for the new version as well. And then it's more about network testing, integration testing from now on. And as you know, I've been working on this networking tool called Rumor. And with Rumor, I plan to embed Rumor into the scripting approach where we can set up testing scenarios. So imagine a bunch of nodes asking for different block requests and the client responding with blocks. So that's like a basic sync test. These kind of things, these should be really easy to script with this new setup. And that's my update. Thank you.
Thanks, Proto. Other testing items? Great. Client updates. I want to hear how things are going, and also if you've done any multi-client experimentation, both on discovery or actually doing some sync stuff. We'd love to hear about that, how that's going. Let's start with Sigma Prime, Lighthouse.
Hello everyone, Paul here. So we've started some work and research on a peer reputation system. We've also pulled our ENR out into its own crate so we can share it with the Open Ethereum effort. We're improving our DiskV5 implementation to work with the new ENR crate and also to allow Lighthouse to make some performance tweaks on the mechanism for like IP limiting, modifying timeouts and things like this. After chatting with Prism, who Nishant has been doing some great work doing interrupt stuff. So after chatting with them and Proto and Felix, we're improving DiskV5 to limit natted peers in our DHT so we can speed up peer discovery. We're building an ENR predicate query search, and we're doing all this stuff so that we can do our upgrade to use the attestation aggregation scheme. It's in progress, but coming soon. We also released a validator UX survey to help understand what stakers need, want, and desire. So that's wrapping up soon. If you're interested in contributing, you should be able to find the links through our Twitter. We trialed a light implementation of Proto is remarkable with some good results, but we're not quite moving across to it yet because despite a significant change, and it wasn't quite worth it at this stage. But promising. We're also experimenting with some optimizations on BLS signature verification to speed up block processing, and we're seeing pretty good results so far. Over the past few weeks, we've onboarded 2 new developers. We have Adam and Diva, and they've been great. We also released a blog post this week if you want a little bit more detail. That's it from us.
Great, thanks, Paul. Prism.
Hey guys, Terrence here. So like Paul said, we were able to interrupt with Lighthouse on their Eth2.0 branch. That's super exciting. We were able to successfully sync to head And then the Prism didn't have any validators, so Prism was just basically listening and syncing, but still really good to see that. And our version 0.1 of the slashing service is active on the Prism testnet. So we verified that we could successfully cut a double vote, and then that was also reported via Beacon Block Explorers. And then the validators was indeed slash and ejected. And we have this new SSZ for Prism, which is significantly faster than before. So this was achieved by creating a code generator that outputs marshal or marshal functions for any struct in Go that is valid under the SSZ rules. Our OSSC was pretty slow because Go doesn't have support for generics, and then that was just a naive approach. So once this new SSZ is used in Prism, we will announce it publicly. And then I'm also working on a staging service which allows generation of any arbitrary historical state. So that should significantly improve on the memory usage and then the CPU usage as well. There are a few items we're currently working on. So working on dynamic substitutions of subnets, and then we're also working on noise interoperability. And at last, we're also working on upgrading to the latest spec, release version 11. And that's it. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Terrence. Nimbus.
Hi. So we created our new targets for March sprint, and as three highlights, we have one interop, two starting the auditing process so that we can at least discuss with firms, especially given that NIM is a very new language that they probably don't know. And third highlight will be dropping completely the Lippy2P daemon. In terms of update, on the core spec, we are almost at 0.10.1. With the new BLS changes, merging has been delayed due to low-level bugs. And we have progress on the attestation aggregation work. It's not fully done, but it's mergeable. On the testing front, now CI automatically launch a small local network and ensure that we have finalization after 5 epochs. On the networking front, for discovery, we can now interrupt with GEF disk v5. We cannot yet interrupt with Lighthouse, but we are testing and making sure that it will work. We have several improvements to Lippy2P stability. And also we have a new log analysis tool to track Lippy2P errors. On the performance side, I mentioned last call that we had some performance issue on a single node. And we actually found out what the bug was. It was a bug in Lippy2P where we had a buffer of size 1 instead of 1 megabytes. That was just a shift right instead of shift left in the code. And so after fixing this bug, we now can handle five times more traffic. But the downside is that we generate five times more logs. But it's a very nice performance fix. And that's it for me.
Cool. Thank you very much. Teku.
Okay, that's me this week. So in terms of progress, Discovery v5 is now merged in, modulo a bug or two. We can discover nodes on the Lighthouse network, but we can't discover our own nodes, I believe. So something is going on there. Deposit processing is all done. Sync seems to be in good shape now, and we're making very good progress on RPC implementation. As a heads up on that, there's an interest within Pegasus on working to standardize RPC interfaces across clients, already there's a bit of divergence between clients. There was an effort that started a while ago in the GitHub repo, but this seems to be on the back burner at the moment. There's strong interest in this from Infura. As you can imagine, varying RPC interfaces are a major pain point for them. So they may get involved with this or lead an effort or something like that. So just wanted to give you a heads up, look out for more news on that. On performance, we've finally merged in a massive PR from Anton to implement Remerkable. We see 4 times speed up in block processing, so we're down to 200 milliseconds, and a 4 times slowdown in epoch processing, 1200 milliseconds. It's a win overall, but we're now working on improving the epoch processing. 98% of block processing time is now signature verification, so that's the next target. We'll likely move to Harumi and put in a load of caching and other optimizations. A big chunk of our sync time, we believe, is database operations, so we'll also be working on that during the next sprint. And finally, we are ready to merge 0.10.1 into our master branch. We've been delaying this a while as we've been testing our sync against Prism Sapphire Network, but we think the time is right to move on the same day that the 0.11 appears. That's it from me.
Cool. Exciting progress. The asymmetry in the discovery is pretty funny. For the signature processing, I'm pretty sure that Lighthouse is the only team that's implemented this fast verification of multi-BLS signatures. This post from Vitalik a while ago on ETH Research. I think there's probably on normal blocks like 20%-ish gains to be had there. So teams, you should take a look at that link I just sent. Otherwise, progress sounds great. Thank you. Let's do Trinity.
Hey everyone. Let's see. No crazy updates in terms of features, except for some stability of the overall node and our libp2p stack. We do have some exciting interop news with respect to Disk V5. We're interoping with, I believe, Geth and then definitely Lighthouse. So that was exciting to see. And otherwise, yeah, working on updates to the latest spec release.
Thanks, Alex. And Ben, yes, I'm also keen on the API standardization. It has certainly been on the back burner with everything else, but some extra eyes and help there would be awesome.
Yep, cool.
And Lodestar.
Hello. So we've been working on Disk V5 past few weeks. It isn't quite ready, but I think in the next week or so we'll be ready to start testing it out, interoping with others. We've been doing some work. We've been doing some work on I guess storing our data more efficiently to the database. This has been kind of an issue as we've been storing every state, and we're working to fix that. We just got some results back from some audits. We were able to audit some pieces of code that we don't think are going to change or very unlikely to change. So in particular, EIP 2333 through 2335, like BLS key generation and storing to disk. And the results of the audit came back fairly good. We should make them public here shortly once we fix just their minor suggestions. And in the next few weeks, we're going to be trying to start syncing from other public test nets and just generally trying to improve the stability of our node.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. And Tomas, perfect timing. Another mind.
Oh, okay. So I've seen all the updates from Sly coming from last week. So there was updates to 10.1 spec, and major changes to support all the latest BLS requirements, some more integrations and preparation of the sync information APIs, and now the splitting of the validators processes to be able to run the tests, so we have the two separate processes synchronizing together. So significant progress, a lot of work from Sly. He was super excited about the achievement from the last 2 weeks. I am too.
Great. Thank you very much. I believe that is everyone, correct? Okay. Next on the research, I have a couple things I wanted to get in. We do have the audit results of the lease authority audit, which would be to release ASAP. Some of those changes already did make it into the spec. Otherwise, there are kind of some suggestions for future work, which we'll certainly be looking into. Also, phase 1 is and has been getting a lot of love. It's kind of some core testing in place and a major PR to be merged very soon with a few cleanups, at which point at least the general structures are there. Probably be great timing starting last week of March, maybe first week of April, if anyone has an extra resource, which I'm sure you do, to begin prototyping. There might be some valuable kind of feedback loop there. Great, so research updates. Who wants to get us started?
I'll go for TXRX.
Cool.
So we had 2 write-ups come out since our last call. One is covering the safety of the Eth2.0 follow distance, and that's written up by Mikhail because he's working on research into Eth2.1 finality gadget and a 2-way bridge. We also had another write-up come out covering non-sequential receipt cross-shard transactions, and that's just kind of like an appraisal of that. And that's it. I'll leave some links in the chat. Johnny's not dead, and that's cool.
Johnny had surgery, right? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, yeah, he had kidney stones, then he had surgery, so he's not dead.
Good.
And that's always good.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, that was a good one. Thanks, Joseph. Vitalik, do you have anything you want to update us on?
Yeah, I can talk about the post for that I made a couple of days ago about using polynomial commitments to update state roots. So basically, the idea here is it's this more longer term proposal that basically says that instead of using the binary Merkle trees or any kind of Merkle tree to store state roots, and this could presumably apply to the ETH1 state root. This could apply to state roots of execution environments or other things. We would use polynomial commitments, which are this kind of mathematical object that's kind of a hash of a polynomial that you can do certain kinds of mathematical checks on. And I talk about how if we switch to this kind of model, then it becomes very easy to have kind of very short witnesses for a very large number of keys and values that you're proving. And so the main current bottleneck of stateless clients, which is basically witness size, would pretty much drop by potentially something like over 90%. Now, in terms of what this actually requires, this basically requires this kind of structure that I talk about in that ETH research post. It's called just using polynomial commitments to replace state roots. That's right near the top, where we have this kind of scheme based on several layers of caches, and where you have these kind of multi proofs going in that prove a whole bunch of values in a polynomial commitment at the same time. and it does rely on some kind of very new math. Like it relies on some stuff that Aztec people invented literally 2 weeks ago. But everything seems to everything seems to work out. In terms of kind of practical implementability, I think in the short term, the most realistic place to start using polynomial commitments would not be state roots so much as it would be block bodies, and I mean potentially receipts as well. Basically, because with block bodies and receipts, you don't have to do any kind of proofs that show that a commitment has been updated correctly or anything like that. You just have one commitment, and then if you want to access it, you can just go and access it. And the shell and that's something that um, I don't know. Like I personally think that we should potentially even consider using this instead of Merkle trees to store things like shard block data fairly early, but it's still something that's just worth considering at this point. And some of the benefits would include the smaller proofs. Also, you get erasure coding for kind of data availability checking, basically for free in a much simpler way that doesn't require any kind of fraud proofs. And you get for free, I mean, potentially better proof of custody schemes. So that's something that we want to kind of think about more as well. And then in the long in the longer term, this is something that could be used for the state as well. So yeah, encourage reading the post and encourage and leaving questions.
Thank you. And the path we will take for the time being is to make sure that these types of components are well black boxed, such that if it's time to switch over, we can easily just swap it.
One important kind of black boxing thing that's important to keep in mind is that these schemes will end up kind of changing how how witnesses work, and so like we don't want to. So, for example, if someone ends up writing a Merkle branch verifier in the EVM, and then later on we switch from Merkle branches to Cade commitments or to Fry, then that would end up breaking. And so it's, yeah, I guess important developers or on the protocol to kind of not make those kinds of mistakes that lock us into things.
Thank you. Other research updates.
And one thing that's worth just saying is that the conversations we had with Aztec people in general made us kind of quickly much more optimistic about the medium-term possibility of doing ZK snarking over a full virtual machine. So that's something that's at least in my mind kind of moved from crazy to kind of medium to long-term actual possibility.
Right, which could have layer 1 uses and certainly would have layer 2 rollup uses.
Yes.
Cool.
I could give a quick update from the quote side.
Great.
So actually, there isn't all that much to update from because we've been mainly busy like going to ETCC and the ETH1X summit, where it was great to see the progress on the 1X side, and we're now looking a little bit into like how or if there's existing ETH2 research that might be useful in the ETH1X context. So, for example, like there might be state provider networks. Sam has been really interested in the DHT approach there. Also, things like SSA, static state access, which I've been talking about on last call, how that might be useful in a stateless mining context and stuff like that. We're also continuing our research on these two side, of course, but I assume it might make sense to just have updates there on the next call because we didn't have all that much time to focus on that yet. I think that's all already from the quote side.
Thanks, Ansgar. Other research updates. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Next on the item on the list is networking. We had what I thought was pretty productive networking call about a week ago. There are some notes floating around from Ben. It was pretty good. And we've seen a few kind of items shake out from that. I haven't decided if we're going to do one next week. Are there any thoughts on that? Are there enough networking items, or do we want to kind of get into the spec and then do that 2 weeks from now? Anyone feel strongly about that? Otherwise, I'm just make a decision later today. Okay. Any networking items we want to address today?
Well, just a note. So during ECC and after ECC, I think co-working with Dimitri and Felix, Dimitri from Status. So with this, all the discussions, testing has moved forward. We have an approach now and like ideas on how we want to make this work. And also with the help of Felix, the GoLibP Discovery v5 had some minor problems. He's fixing these and actively testing against different clients. So if your Discovery v5 is ready, or if it's like ready to like get tested against other clients, or at least the GoLibP or the Go Ethereum Discovery v5 implementation, then please do share your implementation, build instructions, and we'll continue testing.
Thanks, Bodo. Other networking items. Okay, anything spec-wise people want to discuss? Cool. I know y'all are beginning to take a look at V011. I know there's already an issue on spec repo. We're gonna have a lot of the conversation there. Okay. So I think the way we are framing things right now is March is multi-client experimentation and getting up to V011, whereas April will see multi-client testnets. Obviously, that is contingent upon a successful March. But questions or thoughts on that? Great. Open discussion. Anything people want to talk about? I've actually been wanting to do another sort of client retreat interrupt thing, and keep my eye on coronavirus. And it looks like we're not going to be playing that anytime soon, at least for the next month or so. But it's a lot of good work, good co-working to happen on the internet. Anything else? I know we all have a lot of work to do. But if you have anything else, we can talk about it now.
Phase one implementation. Like, do we have a roadmap for even one implementation of phase one starting anytime soon?
there are 2 or 3 teams that I think intend to put a resource on this, kind of when we signal to do so. And signaling to do so, I think, would appropriately be probably end of March, first week of April, given the status of those specs.
Sounds good.
Cool. And I hear whispers of ETH1 client teams wanting to prototype some ETH1 integration work against phase 1 prototypes. So let's see that movement as well in the coming couple of months. Okay. Okay. These calls are easy when there's just a shit ton of work to do on y'all's end. Anything else? Okay. I'll let y'all know as soon as possible when the networking call is going to be, and we'll do this call again in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.